Hey everyone, it's Howie and Kaylyn with Pure Mind here again. Hope you're off to a great week. We finally worked through some technical difficulties to get on here with our Q&A. So we're really excited to dive into this, and we took a week off last week, so excited to be back. Kaylyn, is there anything you wanted to add before we jump into them?
Yeah, just thank you everyone for tuning into these every week. We love creating the space to answer your questions and go a little bit deeper with you guys. And if you're looking for more one on one or higher touch support, we would love to invite you into our private community. Within that, we're doing a lot of subconscious reprogramming work, guided journeys, activations, and really things that we believe a lot of these other at home programs are missing. We really focus on, not just the medicine and, these peak experiences, but really how to walk through the doors once they've opened. And if you've, feel like you've done all the things and checked off all the boxes, then integration is likely that missing piece. And that is really what we specialize in. So if you feel like you've kind of plateaued, you're stuck, we would love an invitation to support you deeper. But hopefully you find, some answers to the questions that maybe you've been having today. So let's go ahead and get started. Someone asked, why does everyone constantly call ketamine a catalyst rather than a cure? Excuse me.
This is a really good question, and from my personal experience and what I've seen, is that cure can sometimes be like, I'm never going to have a tough day again, or I'm never going to feel sad or depressed or low energy again. And I don't think that's realistic for life in general. Whereas a catalyst is something that can help balance you out really quickly and help you get back into proper rhythm with the ebbs and flows of life. So high energy, low energy, high tide, low tide, etc. So rather than feeling like you have to spend years or decades healing, ketamine can kind of open up your nervous system so that you can relax in terms of your posture towards life. It's kind of like, what would it feel like if I wasn't bracing so hard against life? You get to try that on for a little bit, but ultimately it's up to you to create that new baseline within your own system.
Yeah, I love everything that you just said, and I completely agree. I think that there's a really big misunderstanding about the healing journey, and it's kind of sold to us as this linear path or this set destination. I'm going to heal my worthiness, or, I'm going to heal my money blocks, or whatever it is. And, from doing this work ourselves and guiding thousands of other people through these processes, we've learned that, it's not about a cure and it's not about a quick fix, but it's really about relationship. And it's really about rediscovering and redefining that relationship with yourself, with your aliveness, with your emotions, with maybe some of the things that you've experienced, because it's not really the thing that causes the problem or the trauma or, whatever it is. It's really about like the energy that lives in the body after, right? It's about how you relate to it, what you make it mean. And when we start kind of getting out of the head and getting more into the body, you realize that healing is going to be a lifelong journey, right? It's going to be a constant relationship. And it's something that you have to say yes to over and over again, because there's always going to be, deeper levels of consciousness, aliveness, right? Your authenticity, your gifts that you'll be able to tap in and access. So I think that, we're not looking to have this quick fix or a cure. We're looking to give you something that's going to catalyze you and pull you forward deeper into those pathways home to self, so that, it doesn't feel so much like work or a cure, but more about a new relationship, or like how he says, a posture towards life. And that's really what we aim to teach and guide our clients through. Do you want to add anything to that?
Exactly. I mean, just to build on what you were saying, that posture or relationship towards life, it's like, what if emotionally your body was allowed to just feel? What if
Mm-hmm.
mentally you were just allowed to think and it wasn't a problem? But it was like, how can I relate to this differently? Not assuming it's a problem or something I need to solve, but something that I can learn to hold. And when you start viewing it that way, it brings a lot of energy back. So a big part of the catalyst versus cure, in the beginning when we're out of balance towards everyday sucking, for example, like Groundhog Day of suffering on repeat, Well, it's natural and intelligent to want relief because that's actually the act of balancing you. You can't be spending 99% of the time in the darkness and love that experience. Like, let's be real. But what most of us actually want is a balanced experience. So if it wasn't just darkness and you had 50% of the time being sunny days, you wouldn't be so bothered by the darkness. You would actually view it as like, oh, this is important in my journey. So what we really want is to move to the 50-50 point, not to have 100 days of just sunny weather. So the catalyst part helps us balance out quickly. The cure part is, I guess if you wanted to call it cure, is how do I stay in balanced relationship with my life, not do I never have a dark day again. So I think
Yeah.
this is just really important in terms of understanding that the relationship isn't something somatic in the body. It's not like, oh, I always feel happy because I'm
Yeah.
in right relationship. It's like your body's going to feel what it's going to feel. Like you don't have to micromanage that part. That's the body's experience. You don't have to change all of that. Oh, how much energy returns when you realize you don't have to change that.
Yeah.
It's pretty powerful. So we can stay in a higher baseline of energy if we have a right relationship and right posture.
I love that. I love that. This is also a really great question. One of our clients asked, what makes taking ketamine different than taking daily medication?
So that it's an interesting question because I think like psychiatric medication, if it was used with the intention of like this is a short-term thing that we're doing because if we didn't do this, you'd be a hot mess. Like cool, use it. Like we have tons of tools. The issue with both is this is a lifelong thing that the tool becomes a crutch over some time and you become dependent on it to change the way you feel. As I just mentioned with the previous question, if we're trying to constantly change the way we feel, we're not letting the body have its full expression of what the present moment's providing. And that's why a lot of us get stuck in these really drawn out periods of depression and anxiety is because we keep fighting with the body's expression. Instead of being like, I'm done fighting with this. If you're going to be anxious, you're going to be depressed, I'm going to learn to love you this way. Not pretend to like it, meaning I'm not going to turn away from you just because you feel differently than I prefer to feel.
Yeah.
So if you just let the storm blow over, it blows over. And like we like to say, that the tight knot unwinds itself. You don't have to do that part. And we waste so much time trying to untangle this thing and we're just making it tighter to where we
Yeah.
can't even, pry it open at all. So I think with ketamine, it can fall under it can have the same issue as traditional psychiatric meds if it's like I need the ketamine forever to make me feel a certain way. Eventually you're going to bump up against that ceiling and it's like
Yeah.
it's time to learn how to relate to your life differently.
Yeah.
So short-term use with any of them I think is the best way of not like you can't ever work with it again, but really making sure that you're doing what you can on your part to do the integration work.
Yeah. I love everything that you just shared. And I think what comes to mind for me is that anything can really be medicine and poison, right? And we see so many people who, like Howie's sharing, get put on these psychiatric meds or, anxiety meds or whatever they are. And instead of using it as, a tool to really help you kind of like get out of hypervigilance and stop racing while, simultaneously doing the other things to truly change and transform and change your relationship with yourself and your reality, they just kind of get in this state where they're avoiding like the root and just kind of like numbing. It's like trimming a weed. You can keep trimming and trimming and trimming, but the root's there and it's going to keep growing and it's going to kind of keep resurfacing, right? And that's how I kind of perceive a lot of like the Western medications, right? Especially in the mental health space, because, personally, I had a dad who struggled with mental health his whole life. And he had bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and it was like never right, like he was either so numb and couldn't feel anything, or, he wouldn't take it and he would feel everything, right? And it's like there was never this good relationship or balance for him to really get to the root cause because it was either up here or down here and there was never like this new baseline being met, right? So I think that, what makes ketamine a little bit different than just kind of numbing like the root cause or numbing the symptoms is it really invites you into the places that really hold the root. I mean, like where the roots really take place, and not just conceptually in the mind, but really also in the body, in the nervous system. And I think that ketamine gives you this opportunity to really experience and explore some of these patterns or wounds from such a different level of consciousness or perspective that you automatically begin to relate to it in a different way, right? Without having to do a lot of conscious effort, without having to pretend it wasn't there, it starts to create enough safety and capacity in the body for you to actually feel with it, for you for the first time to stop feeling like you have to run from it, and I can actually meet this, I can hold this, I can feel this. And that itself is healing, right? Not trying to pretend, excuse me, that the pain doesn't exist, right? That the wound isn't there, but really giving yourself enough space and graciousness and allowance to feel everything that you've been running from, right? That's the difference in taking something like ketamine or other psychedelics or working with altered states versus taking something that's just going to numb and suppress the sensations and symptoms happening in the body, right? One's going to create a forever patient, and one's going to create, hopefully someone who can truly transform and change their relationship to the healing journey, I think. But kind of like Howie was sharing too, I think that, again, like I said, anything can be medicine and poison. So, you know, sometimes if you aren't getting in proper relationship and you aren't integrating and you're not doing the things outside of your journeys, well, then it can look like, oh, here's just another thing I'm taking to escape or numb. So I think there's also an invitation to be really honest with yourself throughout this and to continuously be checking in. How am I feeling? What am I noticing? Is this supporting me? And just kind of keeping that inner dialogue so that you can really put those proper pillars and structures in place to have the medicine be more of a relationship or a catalyst versus like a crutch.
Exactly. And to your point, like there are differences fundamentally in like what these medicines are doing, like ketamine falling more into, I mean, it's a dissociative, but it kind of acts similarly to psychedelics or classic psychedelics, whereas a lot of the SSRIs are more numbing you out to your emotions. So they kind of turn off your emotional body so that you just don't feel anything. So both can be used in like an emergency situation to help you out. So there's that part. The interesting thing with ketamine is it opens up your system. So it takes you from a closed system, which is fight or flight, where energy can't move, right? It's like the river's dammed, essentially. Ketamine like knocks the dam down and opens up the system so energy can start moving again, which is just natural in an open system. Like the river moves, then you have to try to make it move.
Yeah.
But when it's dammed off, it can't move. So you remove the dam, now energy's flowing, suppressed emotions come up, whatever starts coming up. Great. The challenge, though, is your body can start to believe that, oh, I can open up my system if I take ketamine or if I
Mm-hmm.
do whatever. I believe that's possible because I'm doing it and I'm experiencing it, but the body doesn't believe that necessarily that it can just open its system on its own, in its own energy. So this is where the subconscious reprogramming is so important so that you can really believe at the foundational level that I have the ability to open up my own system without taking anything exogenously.
Mm.
So working with ketamine is like kind of like doing it in a simulation. Like I think of like the flight simulations that pilots do. It's like great, you get to practice opening up your system. You get to like learn how the plane works and all that stuff. But then you actually got to go fly. And when you actually fly, a whole different set of emotions and things
Yeah.
come up. And you have to see, can I stay open even with this higher intensity? So I kind of view physical reality in our normal waking state, sober, as being that higher intensity.
Yeah.
So weirdly, we think that like the peak experiences are the higher intensity. But it's like, no, get down in earth and get down in the mundane and tough stuff. That's actually where the intensity is. Can you stay open? Can you keep your system open? Can you keep your body open? And the way that's done, again, is through a posture towards the body. If the body feels respected and revered and actually loved, it stays open. If it feels controlled, criticized, etc., it closes off. So this is like what we're learning with the integration, but it starts with, can I stay open in my own energy? And that's like Kaylin mentioned at the beginning of the call. That's what we do with our live reprogramming sessions. So we start showing our body and our system that it's safe to stay open, that we don't need anything outside of us to stay open. And that's what really lands the plane.
Yeah, everything that you just said, like mic drop. Let's end the call. No, I'm just kidding. But it's so powerful. But it's something that I feel like is hard to really conceptually understand, like what you're saying, right? Because people are like, oh, if I just know more, then that's going to be the thing. And, we've been having the most incredible results inside of our container doing these subconscious reprogrammings every week. And I think the big difference is you really do get into a felt sense in the body where your body is like, I'm experiencing something different, right? Not on a mental level. It's not about like envisioning something different, right? Or thinking of all the things you want to accomplish. It's like the body gets to feel a different type of experience. And when it does, it goes, oh, wait a minute, there's something else possible, right? And the more that we drop in and we do that, and the more pathways and capacities and safeties that we create in the body, it's so much easier for you to tap into that and to feel that when you're not doing, a subconscious reprogramming, when you're not doing a session with the medicine, right? You start to realize, like, I'm actually the tool and I'm actually the medicine. And these things can be great catalysts and kind of tools that I use. But at the end of the day, I have everything right here. And I think that the way that we guide our clients and structure our programs is to really give people kind of that invitation back into their sovereignty and back into their power. So, as much as we love, our repeat clients, we're not looking to have forever customers, right? We're more interested in giving you the tools and the resources that are actually going to transform your life. And so much of that happens outside of the actual medicine work, right? Like Howie's saying, it happens in your day-to-day life. It happens in your human experience, right? And I think that when more people use the medicine as kind of that tool and catalyst, and then the rest of the time is about creating the relationship with whatever was shown to you or insights or aha that you downloaded, well, that's when the transformation really sticks, right? That's the difference in people who come in and have some cool experiences and the people that leave completely transformed, right? It's integration.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we covered that question pretty thoroughly.
Yeah, well, we'll stay on a soapbox for a million years if we talk about integration. So, oh, I love it. This is a good one because it kind of pulls this in too. What are some of the biggest mistakes people tend to make after their sessions?
Well, practically, you're in this open state. So, to the best of your ability, like trying to be mindful of your inputs, like what am I watching on TV when my system's open? What am I putting into my body? You know, food, hydration. So, kind of the survival things I think are the most important things to look at. And that's in general, that's not just with after ketamine, but you are in this more malleable state in a way. So, like, you wouldn't necessarily want to do ketamine and then, drink a bunch of alcohol because you might kind of create wiring in your system where you're more susceptible to want that.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is not turning it into some overly performative, neurotic thing in your life. That this is about developing a new relationship. Your body's still going to have its cravings and things, but how can you learn to stay more aware, to have more of a realistic conversation with your body? I mean, that's what I like to do. It's like, okay, this decision I'm about to make, what are the energetic costs?
Yeah.
Like, is this adding energy or taking away energy in general, this behavior? And just having just an honest, not violent conversation with myself riddled in shame. It's just like the math. What's the math here? What's the energy expenditure? So that's where I like to start with, like, making decisions after these states. Does this feel like it's adding to my life or taking away? And even if we decide it's taking away and the body's like, I still want to do it, then it's like, fine. But at least we had the conversation. Thanks for listening. And then one thing that Kaylin and I talk a lot about is setting up this idea of experiments in your life. It takes a lot of the pressure away from, like, needing to transform perfectly or needing to guess how everything's going to unfold 100% correctly. So if it's like maybe I have a certain behavior that I know takes more than it gives. Let's say it's eating fast food. Okay, rather than shaming the body for having those cravings and whatever, it's like, hey, body, would you be open to, for the next 2 weeks, maybe we try cooking at home instead and just see how it goes. If we decide we still want fast food after the 2 weeks, great, we can go back to that. But would you be open to trying something different? And let the body from a felt experience actually see that, oh, I actually like cooking at home. Like this actually feels good to me. Going back to Kaylyn's point about generating new felt experiences in the body. But if you're like, fast food's bad, you look horrible, blah, 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 it's like no one wants to change from a place of criticism. But
Right.
from exploration and with like, we can still choose this after our experiment, let's just see what happens. It just has more of this curiosity based into it. So I think if you can play with, like after your ketamine sessions, getting more curious than reprimanding yourself, you'll find longer term success and you'll find that it's actually more fun too.
Yeah. And I love that you said it could be more fun too, because I think that everyone approaches this work like so seriously, right? And I think some of the most profound shifts and insights I have come from when I'm just like having fun and it's more joyous and playful. Not that, pain isn't a great teacher, but it doesn't always have to be done through pain and struggle. That was just a side caveat. What I think are some of the biggest roadblocks or obstacles that people put in place after their session, my biggest thing is not creating enough space. I tend to notice that clients who either rush into their sessions and kind of rush out and jump right back into being mom, or, checking their emails, or like getting directly back into their kind of like day to day life, for lack of a better word, they don't really receive as much as someone who approaches this more as almost like a ceremony or a self-care date with themselves, where I'm going to give myself time before to really drop in, to set my intentions, to connect with my body. Maybe you're like me and you have kids, and my daughter put Slimer in her hair this morning, so my body was a little activated, right? I needed a few minutes before I could and really drop in and be connected to myself, right? So like, are you giving yourself space before and space after to really like integrate, right? Because so much of what happens during your session is happening beneath the level of thought, right? Or what our language even has words to put to. So really giving your body time to integrate, right? Really allowing the subconscious its time to kind of like reacclimate and reorganize itself. And during those times, like how I was saying, nourishment. Make sure you have the basics, right? Are you eating? Are you hydrating? Are you getting good rest? And I always encourage my clients, like during that window, you want to do things that like feed your soul, right? You want to do those things that deeply nourish your spirit, that activate your creativity, that really take an energetic vote. It's like, hey, this is the type of person that I desire to be, and how I want to feel, and how I want to spend more of my time. So maybe that would look like I would do a session and then have space after where maybe I journaled, or just, did some light meditation or breath work. And for me, nature is a non-negotiable. So I'm like, you know what? I realized I didn't get out in nature today. I better get out there, because that's the type of person I want to be, that always communes with nature, right? And for you, it can look different. But my point is making sure that while you're in that sensitive state, while your brain's very malleable, that you really take those times to ingrain the types of behaviors, feelings, thoughts that you really want to become your baseline, and that you really want to become. And those things will be amplified. But I think when we rush through our treatment, treat it as this other thing just to check off our to-do list. Well, I did my treatment on Tuesday, and then, you know what I mean? I think that, again, it's a relationship with the medicine. It's, you want to come to it as a guide, as a teacher. And I think when you teach it with reverence and you create enough space for it, spirit has that room to move to you and through you, and to really change your life. So that would be my biggest suggestion.
And just to piggyback on what you were saying, like with your connection with nature, when we start deriving our behavior from our values as opposed to the way it should always feel in the body, you're going to be a lot closer to your truth. Because like Kaylin mentioned with her daughter putting stuff in her hair, it's like, you're not going to like that. Like, you're not going to
No.
like the way that feels in your body. Like, let's just be real, right? But you don't have to like it, because it's like, I care about my daughter. I don't have to like every part of that value. It's not what makes it valuable is my preference or the way it always feels in my body. Those things are not the same thing. So if you actually start deriving your behavior from, is this important in my life whether I feel like it or not? If the answer to that's yes, then that's going to be closer to your values. And for most people, it's family. It's your personal, self-care. It's your mental health. It's your spiritual connection. It's your connection with nature. It's your creativity. It's what you do to contribute, right? These are things that are valuable to people, rain or shine. So if you start aligning your behavior towards those things, now you're really connecting to your depth. Whereas like the emotions is more like the surface of the ocean. It could be calm, could be rocky, but the depth doesn't change. The depth is steady, right? It's not moving all that much. So I could be on rocky surface, I could be on calm surface, but I'm still connected to my depth, so who really cares? You kind of get
Yeah.
to that point, like, it's just a flavor, it's just an experience. My body feeling aggravated, for example, who cares? Like, you're allowed to feel aggravated. I'm connected to my depth. Like, it doesn't matter. I don't have to put so much stock in that. You're allowed to have your experience, body. Like, thank you for expressing freely. I don't have to listen to it as absolute truth about the moment, but you're allowed to have that. See, so we're disentangling from this idea that the right things and values should always feel good and should always create positive thoughts. Those things are not directly linked. Like when your daughter puts slime in her hair, it's like thoughts like, God, what a pain in the butt, right? And like, I feel annoyed. Good. That's the experience.
Yeah.
But none of that has to be anything more than that, right? It's because it's like, oh, body's allowed to feel annoyed, mind's allowed to think whatever it thinks about the situation, and I still get to decide how to respond.
Yeah.
That's it. And then it just blows over and you're into the next moment.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Let's go to the next one. This one says, what role does personal responsibility play in healing? I love this question.
It's a great question because I think this gets very convoluted, especially in the spiritual circles. There's a
Mm-hmm.
over surrender, like not taking the reins at all, and then there's control freaks, right, trying to control everything. But I would say that personal responsibility comes more down to the energetic arithmetic, like I talked about before. So really neutrally evaluating the choices you're making and being honest about, does this contribute to my energy or does it take away from my energy? It doesn't turn it into a right or wrong, it's just math. And it doesn't mean that every time you do the math, you have to make the same choice either. So I'll give you an example. If you're someone that's like, okay, I'm drinking every night, and I know that that's an energetic drain for me to be doing it that much. Like I know just doing the math that I'm in energetic debt because of this behavior. Great. So you're aware of that. There doesn't need to be anything extra added to that. There doesn't need to be shaming. This is good for you, bad for you, whatever. It's energetically draining. Okay. Personal responsibility is saying if I want a surplus of energy, maybe I should move towards decisions that add energy instead of taking away energy. It's not a moral thing. It's just, do I want more or less? Let's do the balancing of it. So instead of drinking every night, could I maybe replace that with something that's at least energetically neutral? It doesn't give or take. And then you replace with something that's neutral. And it's like, okay, maybe I could try something that might add energy. It's like, oh, wow, that actually felt better. So this is how you change behavior, not through shaming, just by being honest about the energetic expense. But I think that sometimes it can be hard to be honest with ourselves, especially if we're caught in a behavior that we feel like is serving us in some way. So I actually like to come to behaviors with more grace. Like, hey, you have been giving me something in this trade. And I don't have to even know what it is. Like there's been some exchange, otherwise I wouldn't do it. So it's benefiting me somehow. Thank you for that. Could we be open to trying something different? And I found again that openness makes it a little more fun, and personal responsibility doesn't become this big moral thing.
Yeah.
It just becomes observation of what's really going on.
Yeah, I love everything that you shared, and I completely agree. I think the biggest thing is really looking at, like you said, like, is this feeding me life or is this draining me life? That's a huge indicator into whether something is healthy for you, whether it's integrating properly, whether it's in alignment, right? Like, even just taking that away from today with every choice that you make is enough to change your life, truly. But I think
Yep.
that, for me, personal responsibility is a huge piece, right? Because everyone wants to say yes to the quick fix and yes to the band-aid, but we don't really want to look at ourselves, right? We don't really want to look at the underlying thoughts, behaviors, choices, how we're showing up every day that's essentially perpetuating and creating that same experience. And I think that, it gets to a point, especially with altered states and ketamine, that not saying that you don't have to take any and you won't get relief, right? Because we see the medicine do wonders and really help people get out of hypervigilance and survival without a lot of effort. That's true. And what else is true is that that paradigm and that way of approaching the medicine will only take you so far. Then we'll have people say, well, I feel like I'm not getting any more insights, and I feel like I'm having duds, and I feel like I'm not getting any more. And then it's like, well, how are you integrating? What are you doing outside your, what are you talking about? I'm just taking the medicine, right? So there's no radical responsibility over self. And we've talked about this in previous trainings, but you can spend so much time trying to understand your past or trying to make sense of what happened, or, and that just isn't what's going to create healing. What's even more powerful is every day looking at, who am I choosing to be, right? What am I thinking? What am I drinking, right? What rooms am I in? What books am I listening to, right? They seem like all these small micro moments, but they really compound, right? Every choice you make is an energetic consumption. Think about that. From the shampoo you used in the shower, right, to tuning in to listen to this Q&A today, right? It's energetically becoming you. So again, like when Howie was sharing, like, is this feeding me life or is this draining me life, right? When we can start looking at those things, that's taking radical responsibility. It's, beginning to look at certain things in your life that you're pretending not to know, right? Like, I know drinking every day is bad for me. I know doom scrolling is bad for me, right? But I keep choosing it, right? And it's like being willing to be honest enough with yourself. And sometimes that honesty is hard, right? It's hard to say, like, yeah, actually, I know that I've been choosing things that aren't good for me, right? And it's not about shame, it's not about judgment, it's just about truth. Truth is the most powerful frequency on the planet. And when you can get very true about who you are and who you're choosing to be and what you're choosing every day, then you have the space to really move into power, right? You have the power to really change your life, because instead of being a victim and life is happening to me and just, naming off all these reasons why you don't have blank or why you're not experiencing whatever it is, you start looking at, well, actually, I'm not prioritizing that. Actually, I'm not choosing that. Actually, I'm, spending my time and energy doing this instead, right? And again, like we said, it's not about right or wrong or to shame. It's just about getting honest. And when we can get honest, then we can really begin to fill in, our days and our lives with environments, relationships, choices, things that are actually going to propel us and bring us closer to ourselves and the life that we so badly claim that we want, right? Personal responsibility, I mean, it's the foundation of healing work, right? You can't begin a healing journey and to really come home to the truth of who you are without first being really radically honest about who you're being right here, right now.
And the word responsibility, right? It's the ability to respond. But where does response actually come from if it's not being hijacked?
Yeah,
It
I love
comes
that.
from your awareness, right? Your consciousness. So, like the body, for example, it's like I'm craving sugar, alcohol, whatever it is. My body is craving it, not me, my body. My mind is thinking about God knows what. My mind, not me. I'm the one that gets to witness this experience happening. And the more you can come back to the observer identity as opposed to letting the craving hijack the decision or letting the mind hijack the decision and just being like, okay, I see what's happening and all that's fine. Body's allowed to have cravings. Mind's allowed to be thinking about whatever it's thinking in relation to those cravings. But I still get to decide while they're allowed to fully express. So my body might be having cravings, and it's like, all right, let's let the body have it. Whatever, right? Okay, we've been getting a little out of balance with that. Like, Why don't we try something else, body? Would you be open to trying something else? So
Yeah.
it becomes more of this like dance than this like hard, rigid thing. It's like with a kid, right? It's like, I'm not going to give you ice cream every time you ask for it just because you want it,
Oh, come
right?
on.
It's like sometimes, sure, why not? So I
Yep.
think it's like being the mature one in the group.
Yep.
With like if you're conscious, if you're mind, body, and spirit, it's the spirit side saying, I'm the mature one. That doesn't mean I'm the know-it-all over here trying to hijack your experience.
Yeah.
I'm letting you have your experience, but that doesn't mean I'm going to do everything that you tell me to do, right? So I think that allows you to respond in a loving way. Sometimes you get the treat, sometimes we got to have our vegetables, and I can be the one that helps decide that. But I don't have to change the fact that you want a treat
Right.
or that you don't want vegetables, right? Like I don't have to mess with the little kids' experience and be the know-it-all, right? You shouldn't do this, should. It's like, let the kid be the kid. Let the mind be the mind, and you can be the mature one that allows them to have their experience, but also like being reasonable about it too. So found for myself that makes it a lot more fun and less like right versus wrong, good choice versus bad choice. Like it falls more on a spectrum. It's like, would we agree that eating ice cream every day probably isn't the most energy additive thing you could do? Yeah, I think most people would agree that that's true. Okay, is having ice cream on occasion such a big deal? No. But people are like, ice cream's bad, never eat it, it's filled with toxins and processed and all this. It's like, okay, now we're on the other side of the spectrum. So I think, yeah, that personal responsibility, it's a gentleness, a tenderness. It's not allowing your body and mind to hijack your decision making, but it's also not using your maturity to hijack the experience of the mind and body. So if you can find that balance point, uh, it's where again it becomes more fun and more lighthearted.
I love it. I want to end with kind of a fun question. I like this one. What have you learned after supporting so many people through this work?
I've learned that everything is changing, right? So that this isn't about trying to prophesize your life. I've been through a lot of different seasons in my life, and there's always more ways to learn and grow, and that's what's exciting about it. But like having more of a flexible relationship, being more malleable, I think is the biggest thing I've learned because everyone's journey is different. We can share common themes and whatnot, but not getting really rigid in speaking in absolute terms about things. I have found to be helpful after seeing so many different people's experiences and how they can go in so many different ways and kind of come to interesting conclusions. That's probably been the biggest thing.
Yeah, I would say we're on the same wavelength because that's exactly where my head went. That there isn't really a one size fits all to the healing journey. I've walked with so many different types of people, different paths of work, traumas, and it's like you've realized that there isn't this one size fits all approach, and each of us is going to go through, especially this medicine work and these journeys, in such a different way. And it's really taught me that there's this just beautiful spectrum of aliveness, right? And how that each of us really comes and really gets to be a conduit for these different expressions and experiences to happen. And it's not about, this is right and this is wrong, but just about really what's true for you and how can you honor truth? How can you honor the cyclical nature of life? Like Howie was sharing, for me on a personal level, the biggest thing I've learned through doing this work for myself is that everything is temporary, right? And just because I feel like I'm in a season that maybe doesn't look like a winning season doesn't mean that I'm failing, right? And that life always has a way of guiding and pulling and directing you back. And the more that you stop trying to hijack and micromanage and, bypass the body and just find deeper presence and relationship with yourself, how much easier the healing journey or even just like your sense of like aliveness gets to be, right? I think that I realized that, so much about this work isn't about adding more or like doing more, but really just coming back home to myself, being fully present in my life, allowing those things that light up my spirit to be present in my life every day, and knowing that I don't have to try so hard just to be myself or to find my way back to myself, right? Like, it's not this imaginary place I'm going to get to one day. It's just the more that I can let go of all these conditions, beliefs, and, traumas and identities that I've taken on, the more that my authentic expression naturally just gets to be there, right? So I don't think that this work is so much about, doing so much and trying to become somebody different, but really giving yourself enough space and presence to explore who you've always been. I think that's been the biggest thing for me.
I love that. And it just simplifies it so much. It's like if you can stay open because you're not arguing with reality. I just keep my system open, and I love what you said. Everything's temporary. If I'm in a storm or a winter right now and I just stay open, if I'm weeping on the ground, great. I'm staying open. I'm letting that energy move.
Yeah.
What's so bad about that? Right? Like we all stayed open and all went through all the different emotions, got to feel them all. We all had our moments on the ground weeping. Who would care if that was normalized? It's like laughing. It's like, who cares? It's like this is what humans do. And there's certain cultures that are a lot more connected to that,
Yeah.
right? Westerners or Americans in particular, especially men, can be very disconnected from their system staying open.
Yeah.
So keep the system open, allow emotion and energy to move. Sometimes you're going to be in a season where your values are going to be more towards self-care and recharging your batteries. Sometimes you're going to be in a season of being more out there and contributing. And then you'll have seasons where it's just kind of a blend of both.
Yeah.
But can you honor that, stay open to it, trust that the seasons are important, even if you don't like it, they're important. And at the very least, you're going to get to learn how to stay open through a tough season.
Yeah.
Hey, even though I was getting bitch slapped by life, I didn't close off.
Yeah.
I stayed open.
Yeah.
That's capacity. That's resiliency. Can I stay open, not just when I get what I want, but through the entire experience? And if you can, you start to realize, oh, these things are temporary. That storm that I was so afraid of, yeah, it was intense, but it blew over. These forest fires that we see happening right across the country and have been happening, it's like they don't stay lit the whole year. Like they eventually die out. They might go longer than we want them to, but they eventually die out. So it's the same type of thing. If you're going through an internal fire, it's like, hey, if I keep it open, this will blow over, and then I'll get to see the other side of the new life that regenerates from it.
Yeah.
So I
I
really
love
love that. The openness and that being how the authenticity shines through.
Yeah, and the last thing I wanted to share with what you're speaking to is that I think too what we've learned and what our clients really learn is that like sensation and emotion just is. And I think so much of the resistance like you're sharing to feeling the anger or weeping on the floor is that we've made that wrong or bad or oh, he's a sissy because he's crying, right? There's all these levels of judgment on expression. When when you really start doing this work and you start creating the safety and the capacity just to feel, the more you sit with all these different ones, especially the ones that are perceived as wrong or bad, you start to realize it's just sensation. It literally doesn't mean anything. So for example, not to go into a whole nother side tangent, we were trying to get this Q&A started for you guys, and we were having the most terrible internet service happening. And there was so much frustration in the body and so many things that were coming up. And while this was happening, we were simultaneously like laughing through it. I was like, I am so frustrated right now. And all of it was there. All of it was present, right? And it didn't mean anything about me that I was frustrated because my internet wouldn't let us connect. For like 40 minutes, you guys, I was fighting this because I wanted to deliver this today, right? And I was so angry and I was so frustrated. And simultaneously, I was also holding this deep joy and excitement because I so badly wanted to be here with you guys, right? It wasn't that feeling the frustration was wrong or bad or meant, oh, this must mean that we shouldn't do the training today, right? It was just an emotion that came up as a response to my external reality. And because I'm so good at feeling them, we could feel them and laugh about them and still deliver this training today, right? The problem is when we resist these emotions, when we resist these sensations and they build up, build up, build up and explode in such a way that we're like, oh, that's so much that we never want to feel that, right? So it's like getting into a relationship where you can feel all the things and I don't have to leave myself. It doesn't mean anything about me, right? That is such a beautiful gift of working with altered states and working with the nervous system, right? You have this bigger capacity of aliveness and to really meet and hold life. And when you can do that, you go through the ebbs and flows, the seasons with such deeper grace and surrender than feeling like, oh my God, I gotta figure it out. This is wrong. This is bad. You know what I mean? Like, it's just such a deeper, this is challenging and it's gonna be okay. We're gonna figure
Yeah.
it out. It's temporary, right? It's different.
And so what? Yeah, and so what? It's like it's an experience. Why does it have to be wrong? To your
Yeah.
point. It's like it's an experience. What's wrong about the experience? Of course, there's things that are objectively wrong, like morally wrong. I'm not saying that. But in terms of the way we relate to our experience, what's wrong with your human feeling the way it does?
Right.
What's wrong with your mind thinking the way it does? It's fighting it that makes this thing loop. It's like there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong, mind. Like have your little freak out. I don't care. I don't believe what you're saying is true. You're just providing specific feedback. It's not the entirety of the whole thing. Body, you're feeling this based on what you've lived. Of course you feel this way. It's okay. Why would it feel different if this is what you've lived? And then the body's like, oh, cool. I'm not getting bashed over the head by that person every time I feel a certain way. Like I can finally express, wow, now I stay open. And then I think it becomes more fun because you get to really touch the texture of the human experience. You get to feel the different emotions. It's not turned into this moral verdict about yourself. And when you're clear like that, not overly identified with the body or overly identified with the mind, then it's a lot easier to make choices based on your depth and not just does it feel good. When we're stuck in those 99% dark days and we're waiting to feel good, why do we feel stuck? Like you have 1% of the days to do anything. You're going to wait till you feel good. So have fun doing nothing. So breaking out of that, and that's probably the biggest reason why I love ketamine, is that it breaks people out and reminds them that the sun's still shining, which I would call hope. It gives people hope. But past that, that's where it's kind of like a savior in the sense of like, hey, you're drowning, I'm going to yank you out of the water. Like, you saved me. But past that, the onus is on you to bring yourself to balance, get your butt back in the water more equipped this time, because you don't get the get out of jail free card where you just get to sit on the lifeboat for the rest of your life. The point is to be in the water. So last time you got crushed and you almost died. You got saved. How do you want to come in relating to the water differently this time? And I think if we see it that way, then it's like, oh, I'm getting to learn, I'm getting to grow. And sometimes that happens through me going through things that I don't like going through. And why do you have to like it? So I'm not going to go any more on that, but
I love it.
Is there anything you wanted to add, Kaylyn?
No, I just wanted to thank everyone for continuing to tune in. We hope that you guys are finding these helpful. If you have any questions, that you would like answered related to at-home ketamine therapy, integration, altered states, we would love for you to either drop them underneath this video, whether you're on YouTube or in our community, and we'll do our best to get them answered next time. We also would love to invite you just to come and be in our field, to come experience what we're doing in our community. So if you're watching this and you're curious about what we're doing, every Thursday night we host a subconscious reprogramming event at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. If you want the link to join the one for this week, comment underneath the video and we will get it sent to you. And we would just love an opportunity for you to really experience what we're talking about in the body and not just in the mind. So please come and hang out with us.